What is up, my fellow knights and padawans? Welcome back to another Eternal Journey video. I'm Jedi, and today we're going to be doing something a little special for this Eternal video, and I'm going to be doing my top 5 safe crafts of Echoes of Eternity, the latest set that dropped from Direwolf Digital on Eternal. So a couple of things that helped me make these grades. One, I tried to pick at least one card in every faction, so I appeal to everyone. I did rank them in according to what I felt were the safest crafts and what not. A couple of considerations or stipulations I used for these is A, how specific a card is to an archetype, like how viable and must-have it is to it, or the flexibility of the card if it went into various amounts of decks. B, how I felt the longevity of the specific archetype is another consideration as well. And then, of course, I did stick to rares and legendaries because I felt those are the ones that people really save their shiftstone to craft. So I did not include commons or uncommons. And lastly, the amount that you need to make of them, right? If it's one that you can put in the market, or if it's 4 of them that you make for the deck, is also a consideration. So with that, guys, feel free to disagree or agree with me in the comments down below. I'll definitely take your feedback on whether you enjoyed this video or not. And let's head down to it. All right, guys, number 5, we have Kato, Arena Herald. Kato is a 2/1 legendary cultist at 2 and fire, and summon, play a 0/1 Totemite if you have 10 or more units in your void. Play an 8/8 giant instead. And then corrupt 1. And for those of you that don't know, corrupt means that when Kato will die, there'll be a 0/1 shade left that you have 1 turn to pay 1 and create either a 0/1 Totemite or an 8/8 giant instead if you have 10 plus cards in your void. And then at the end of your turn, it will get a -1 to its health and die. I added Kato because looking at all the other fire cards, this one is one of the most must-haves for any type of go wide or sacrifice decks, archetypes. The reason why I say that is because base level, you are getting 3 bodies for the price of 1, which is always good for both go wide strategies as well as the Sauk outlets. It helps feed your void by adding 3 units to it. And then, of course, in the sack decks or even in certain mill strategies, not that I think mill is a red thing just yet, it has the potential of making 8/8s for you for the price of 2 or 3 if you have to use the shade. So I think this card has some serious applications, and because of the fact that, as far as I'm aware, for as long as I've been playing, there's always been a sack deck, whether it's been Granadin-centric or Cultist-centric. It is an archetype that is sticking around. So if you are a fan of either the Praxis Go Wide deck or your standard traditional sack deck, I think Kato is a very safe craft for you. That being said, Kato is typically a 4 of because you want to see as many of them as you get. So that is something to consider. And of course, there's additional cultist synergies that for the time being, cultist is a thing we've seen in the last 2 sets. We may or may not see it in the following set. So what makes Kato a safe craft for me is, like I said, he fits into various archetypes. I don't really see him being a thing in a red aggressive deck because at the end of the day, he is a 2/1, makes you a second body, but the second body is an 0/1, and those games don't last long enough for you to potentially get your 8/8. And you see it comboing very well with Shrine. But once again, I tried to pick these not off of the flavor of the week, but rather things that had longevity. And I do think that Kato will have some longevity in these strategies if that's something you are into. So that's going to do it for number 5. Let's head into number 4. All right, guys, for number 4, we have Induced Madness. So I did look long and hard at the shadow cards trying to find one that was a little more flexible, but sadly, there was none that was at the power level of Induced Madness. Induced Madness is a 5 triple shadow cursed relic at legendary. When you sacrifice a unit, the cursed player sacrifices a unit. So what this means is you place this on your opponent, and anytime you sacrifice a card or a unit, they have to sacrifice one as well. The benefits to this is it's tacking on extra removal spells to your various cards like Devour, Combust. There's that common that makes 2 cultists when you sack a unit. Things like that end up turning into removal spells as well. Now, though this is very specific, right? This is a super narrow legendary. It goes only in sacrifice specific decks. Kindling Carver is another one that goes well with this, though that could also be a flavor of the week. The reason why I was okay picking this is because it is so potent in that strategy that I feel like if you are the archetype, the sacrifice archetype, you are going to want this. The other flip side to that is because essentially by itself, it is a do nothing curse that you play on turn 5 or later. So the benefits to this card is you can actually get away with only having 1 or 2 in your deck. I can easily see this being a market card. So you craft 1, place it in your market, and you can always get it whenever it's convenient for you, and thus saving you the trouble of having to save up to craft 4 of these. I can also see this being a 2 of in the main deck, as typically sack decks have the ability to turn through their deck fairly quickly through various means like Kindling Carver and Devour and Scrapper. So that's why I like Induced Madness. Once again, this is a safe one because if you like sacrificing, I feel like you would always put this in any sacrifice deck, especially as a 1 of in the market. And if you're not into the sacrifice decks, then you don't have to worry about Induced Madness. But all right, let's see what's next on the list. For number 3, Primal was another tough one. I actually considered putting the Skycrack Dragon in this slot, but through further ado realized that Linrei's Codex actually is, I think personally, the safest craft to do for Primal. Reason being is Linrei's Codex is a legendary relic for 4 triple Primal, and it reads, your single faction units have flying. Spellcraft 3, play Crystallize, which deals 1 damage to all opponent units, and they are stunned, as well as pay 6 to draw a card for each of your single faction units. So, I think Linrei's Codex is a safe craft because A, going back to our previous comment, you do not need 4 of these. In fact, I think probably 2, maybe 3, but most likely 2 is the correct number for Linrei's Codex, and I'm actually as well okay with you doing crafting 1 and putting it in your market. The reason is this card has a ton of longevity because of the fact that A, it is only Primal, even though it is triple Primal, so you're not splashing for this. But if you enjoy playing Primal, you will be able to put this in most of your decks. Notice it gives all your units flying. It does not need flying units. So what this does is that in most decks, unless you are running a 3-faction deck or really kind of capitalizing on your value, you can modify your deck or have decks where you have enough single faction units where this will get your value. Another thing is it could help you win the game where you have stalled board states, you play Linrei's Codex, giving all your units flying can get in that extra damage to finish the game. Playing Crystallize is known to be a significantly strong game finisher because it either A, gives you 2 turns to stun your opponents by the time you need to draw into extra gas, or stunning your units and getting in with everything, even if you have some units that are multi-faction. And then finally, blue likes drawing cards, and this lets you draw cards. And in fact, it has the potential of drawing a lot of cards later in the game. So I think because of all these things put together, Linrei's Codex is extremely powerful, and the fact that you do not need 4, and it goes into just about any deck that has primarily Primal in it. I think it goes very well with other great legendaries like Rost and Jotun Feastcaller are 2 of the things that come to mind that make this card very powerful, as well as potentially if you do like an Legion thing, it allows you to get in there with your temple, your disciplinary teacher, 3/3, teacher of discipline, humble teacher. I don't know why it's drawing a blank right now, but either way, I can see all kinds of ways where this card is extremely beneficial. So yeah, I like Linrei's Codex. I think it is 100% a safe craft. At number 2, so hopefully to the surprise of no one, I actually could not find a Justice legendary that I felt was a safe craft. Honestly, a lot of them were very niche or just not very powerful. So I creeped down into the rare slot, and I did consider Hammer of Glory for a while because the science effect is strong, but I feel like I found something even better. Strange Blacksmith. Strange Blacksmith is a 4/4 soldier stranger at rare for 4 fire justice. When a player plays a stranger, they draw a weapon from their void. So of note, Strange Blacksmith does trigger off himself. So at the very least, you get a weapon back from your void. Then pay 8 and exhaust Strange Blacksmith to deal 3 damage to an enemy. So unit, weapon, relic weapon, or player, and you gain 3 armor. So even though on the surface, I will say that this tends to go towards armory style decks where you have various relic weapons to get back, it does also get back weapons. So should you be running, for example, Elder Feather or Caleb's Persuader, it will get that back. which is something to consider in aggressive decks. It gives you a great power sink later in the game in that 8 to deal 6. Essentially, you deal 3 to something, whether it goes face or to a unit, and you gain 3 armor, which also, once again, is just straight life gain. So it can go in the armory deck, it cannot. And like I said, it is card advantage right off the bat. And a 4/3 beater is not bad, right? It takes decent chunks of damage from, or life from your opponent, and it blocks fairly well. So because of that reason, I think a Strange Blacksmith is extremely powerful. You don't even need the Stranger tribe to back it up, or synergies. Like I said, it is fine by itself. It even works in a control shell. If you have just one large relic weapon as your finisher, it's a good way to have another blocker, get card advantage, etc., etc. So I think Strange Blacksmith is a safe craft. It also being rare means it costs less. So that's another reason why I like it. Now, what the correct number is, I'm not sure. I'm currently playing 2 in my armory deck, but I would not fault anyone for potentially playing 3 or 4 of these. Of note, it also gets back a Vanquisher's Blade for, once again, going back to the Rakano aggro, where you can use the Vanquisher's Blade early on a unit, get in some extra damage, and when they kill it, you can later play the Blacksmith to get it back. So because of that, I think that Strange Blacksmith takes the case for my safest craft for Justice in Echoes of Eternity. Okay, now we have our honorable mentions. These are 2 cards that I don't think they made the top 5, but are definitely worth noting. First off, we have Skylord Tolek, which is the promotional card for the preview event where you're able to get alternate arts. This is a little skeptical because it is 5 or 3 colors, right? But it is a 5/5 flyer for 5 with pledge, so it is fixing as well. Turn 1, you can play this as a power instead, and it could be either a fire, primal, or shadow sigil based on what you prefer. Your other dragons go berserk and never stop. Let me just say, this is an absolutely game-ending mechanic if you are in the dragon's deck. It means that your dragons can attack twice per turn every single subsequent turn. And it happens as soon as it hits the board. So if you draw this late and you already have, for example, a dragon whelp and a eclipse dragon in play, then the whelp and the dragon will be able to attack twice that turn and the subsequent turn. Mastery 10, transform any number of cards in your hand into dragons. This is one of the reasons why I think this card is another safe craft, is the fact that its mastery can also be game winning on its own. If it manages to block an attack or attack twice, Skylord Tolek will turn any extra 2/2s or side or market cards or extra sigils that are in your hand into random dragons. And that is sheer card advantage in my opinion. So I think because of this, he doesn't have to go only in a nightmare, or correction, a dragon deck. So that gives him some additional flexibility, even though that obviously is where Tolek is the most powerful. So that is one of my honorable mentions. My other one, yep, you guys probably already guessed it or were yelling at me, is the Chants. So the Chants are the version of cargos for this set. What these are fixing for the tri-factions that we are seeing in the form of creation, destruction, menace, tradition, and purpose. I think these are very safe crafts because the cargos saw play, and these Chants have worked out to be quite well. The invoke mechanic is quite powerful, which means you will get, the way the Chants work specifically is you will get 1 card of each of the factions, right? Or of each subsequent pack. So you're guaranteed, let me explain this correctly. I'm sorry. Let me start at the beginning. So Chant, right off the bat, they are like a cargo. You can pay them for 1 to go find 1 of the 3 powers in reference to their respective colors, similar to the cargos from previous sets. So for example, the creation Chant will let you go fire, time, or justice sigil. Now, if you have double fire, double time, and double justice for this specific one, when you play the Chant, you can decimate it, paying 1 of your maximum power to go, not only you will still go get the sigil you're looking for, but then you will invoke the creation factions, which means you will get a attachment, a spell, and a unit, and they have a mix of the 3 colors. Okay, so no matter what, you will get 1 of each of those types, an attachment, a spell, and a unit. But then what mix of those colors is up to the game. Okay, and so because of that, these are early game fixing and then late game card advantage. So I do like the Chants, and I think they are very safe crafts for you to have in your collection. But all right, that's going to do it for the honorable mentions, guys. So now on to number 1. And at number 1, to the surprise of I'm sure absolutely no one, is Grodov's Stranger, Grodov Stranger has been making waves in constructed and limited already. And I think this is exactly what any time deck wants to be doing. And this is why Grodov Stranger is my #1 safe craft of Echoes of Eternity. Now, I've been 2, 3, and 4 of this guy. So what the correct number is, I don't know. I will leave it up to you. But if you play time, I could see you having extreme longevity in Grodov Stranger. It is a 7/7 Stranger at Legendary for 6 time. When a player plays a Stranger, including Grodov Stranger, they play a random sigil from their deck. So it ramps you. Granted, 6 to 7, but still. It could go 6 to 8 as well. When Grodov Stranger attacks, shuffle a void of your choice into the owner's deck, then draw 2 cards. That line of text right there is exactly what puts Grodov Stranger over the top. The fact that you get some upside, some additional upside with the fact that you can recycle your deck if it's gone late game, or you can recycle your opponent's deck if they have any kind of void shenanigans going on, is extremely powerful. You can stop reanimator strategies. You can shut down things like Kato that we talked about earlier. Mill strategies end up, just can't come back from that. So that's extremely powerful. But the other part is the draw 2 cards. So should Grodov Stranger get just 1 attack in, you are automatically up 4 cards, making a 4-for-1 from your opponent. You play a sigil when it comes into play, and then you draw 2 cards, and you attack with a 7/7. So it's 4 cards. Your opponent uses 1 kill spell to get it off the board. You still have your 3 cards off of it. I think that form of card advantage is exactly what time decks are looking for. It being 6 also makes it that mid-range point that is strong for time decks, and it's only double time, so it can go in tri-faction, dual faction decks as well. I think the flexibility and the overall redundancy of this card makes it extremely powerful, as well as something that you're happy to have any deck that you run time. And that's what makes Grodov Stranger my #1 safe craft of Echoes of Eternity. But alright guys, that is going to do it for me. If you made it to the end of this video, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button so you guys get notified whenever more videos like this go up. Please feel free to leave me a comment down below so I know whether you like this video and it's something you guys want me to continue to do. You can always catch me streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And that's going to do it, guys. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, happy gaming.